Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with coverage of the 13th and final round of the 2017 Tata Steel Tournament played on Sunday the 29th of January. Wesley So was in the lead after 12 rounds, but he had three players breathing down his neck. World champion Magnus Carlsen from Norway, Wei Yi from China and Levon Aronian from Armenia. Wesley So was black in the last round. It was a Russia against the USA clash. Wesley So's opponent was Jan Nepomniachtchi from Russia. So knew that if he won, then he won the tournament outright. But if he only could make a draw, there was a good chance that it would be a tiebreak, because he knew that there was a good chance that either Carlsen, Wei Yi or Aronian would win their game. So an exciting last round. Let's look at the Nepomniachtchi-So clash. Nepomniachtchi opened d4, knight f6 from Wesley So, who said afterwards that he had expected one e4 from the Russian. And bishop g5, the Trompovsky. Not a surprise to So, because Nepomniachtchi had played it against Elyanov earlier in the tournament. So he was prepared. d5 from Wesley So, knight e2. And now So hesitated. He played c5, but he said, I hesitated playing this move as I didn't want to run into some home preparation from white. But he still played it because he was curious what Nepomniachtchi had prepared here. Another move So considered was knight bd7, which is more solid and also fine for black. Nepomniachtchi took on c5, e6, e4, and here an instructive moment. Wesley So explained later that he had to kick the bishop first with h6, because if he takes on e4 straight away, then there is knight takes, and after queen e5 check, then there is bishop d2. And that's why he played h6, kicking the bishop went to h4, and then took on e4. If Nepomniachtchi had now taken on e4 with the knight, then queen a5 is a good move, and there is no bishop d2, which would have been strong in that other variation. But after d takes e4, Nepomniachtchi did not take back, but played a very ambitious setup. He played queen e2 with the idea to castle queenside. Queen e5 from So, queen a5 from So, but still, after a 27-minute think, which is unusual for Nepomniachtchi, he's usually a very quick player, he decided to go for queenside castling, giving up the a2 pawn which So took. Wesley So said about this position, I saw no problems and just took the pawn. One factor in the position is that the pawn on e4 that white decided not to capture on move 7 is now preventing white from developing his kingside. Square f3 is unavailable for the knight. g3 is not possible because of g5, and the bishop is lost. g4 does not make much sense, neither does knight h3. And after knight takes e4, there is queen a1 check, and the b2 pawn is lost. Interesting to hear Wesley So's view on this position. He was quite happy here, and Nepomniachtchi played queen b5 check. The 12th world champion Anatoly Karpov was in Wijk aan Zee, and he joined the commentary, and Karpov, together with Grandmaster Yassar thought that knight b3 here would have been better. Anyway, Nepomniachtchi played queen b5 check, and So shielded the check with knight bd7. Here Nepomniachtchi went into the think tank for another 30 minutes. Again, very unusual for him. What he may have missed here, that after bishop takes f6, black has an in-between move, a7, a6, kicking the queen away so that he can take on f6 with the knight and not compromise his pawn structure. He came up with c6, and That was taken. Queen takes c6. And here Wesley So said, from afar I only looked at rook b8 or queen a1, but then I noticed the very nice move bishop b7. Indeed a lovely move. This refutes White's setup. Black finishes his development and he's a pawn up anyway, and he has a powerful queen on a2. Here Black has a very good position. Nepomniachtchi took the bishop, and now an important move. Queen a1 check, again an in-between move. If So had played rook b8 straight away, then queen takes, knight takes, bishop b5 check, knight fd7, and knight b3. And Black's queen is trapped. Wesley So wanted to avoid this. It turns out that Black is still winning here. If he plays g5 and bishop g7, then he's saving his queen and has a winning position. But of course, if you see this during a game, seeing that your queen gets trapped, that's not something you will want to play. So that queen a1 check move, make sure that Black's queen will never get trapped. Knight b1 is the only move, and now with a passive knight on b1 he can never really trap the black queen, as we'll see. Now rook b8 as planned, and you really have to sacrifice your queen here. The alternative is queen c6, but that is a disaster for White. I'll show you a line. Queen takes b2 check, king d2, bishop b4 check, king e2. The king is chased while so many of White's pieces are still on the bottom rank. Black just castled and the engine is already at -9. This is not something that you will consider playing with White. So Nepomniachtchi took on b8, knight takes b8, and bishop b5 check. Knight fd7, knight e2, finally finishing his development. Bishop e7, those bishops were swapped, king takes back, and knight d4, with the obvious threat knight b3, trapping and winning the queen. As you can see, after knight b3, the queen has no squares. Wesley So found a good solution, knight c5. Of course the b3 square is now covered by the knight, and if you decide to kick that knight with the idea to play knight b3 afterwards, that doesn't really work, because there's knight d3 check, and suddenly the queen, because the b2 pawn is gone, the queen has now an escape route. For example, c takes d3, queen takes d4, and black is winning with his extra material. Nepomniachtchi came up with h2, h4, planning to develop his rook over the third rank. Rook d8, and here Wesley So commented, unless White can find a way to trap Black's queen, White is lost. Rook h3, with the obvious threat, rook a3, trapping the queen. But Wesley So had seen it and played knight d3 check. And there's a number of variations here, which I'll show you. There is rook h takes d3. That doesn't work because of e takes d3. And if you then play knight b3, there is simply d takes c2. And if you take that pawn, there's rook c8 check. And if you play knight c3, then rook takes, king takes. Doesn't work because then the rook on d1 is unprotected. And if you take with the pawn, then queen a2 check, king c1, and the knight is gone. And again, black has a lot of extra material. That was after d takes e2 and king takes e2. instead of king takes c2 you can also play rook d7 check. But after rook d7, knight takes a1, c takes b1 queen, king takes, rook d1 check, the king has to go to a2, rook d2, you have a winning endgame with black. And the last option after d takes c2 is that of course you cannot take the queen because there's c takes d1 with a new queen and checkmate. So these variations all after rook h takes d3. Nepomniachtchi must have seen all that and decided to play bishop takes d3. Rook takes d4 because that knight is now unprotected. And there are no more queen traps. The game is over, but Nepomniachtchi decided to play on. Bishop e2. The rooks were swapped. Queen a5, the queen back in the game. Knight d2, the knight back in the game. f5, rook g3. Queen e5, protecting g7. Rook a3, knight c6, protecting a7. g3, queen d4, rook e3, and the last move of the game was knight b4. And Nepomniachtchi had seen enough, he resigned here. Why did he resign? Let's look at a few variations. c3 with a fork does not work because of knight d3 check, king b1, and for example queen b6. Black has a material advantage and white has no counterplay ideas. The engine is already on -6. Just to show one other variation, knight b3 hitting the queen does not work because of knight a2 check, king b1, queen takes, king takes, and queen takes c2. And again, you are too much material behind to save this position with white. This game was the first to finish in the Masters group, so Wesley So could be congratulated and was congratulated very sportingly by all the other Grandmasters during the round. They were still playing, but they were congratulating Wesley So on his victory because by winning this game he was sure of being first on his own. Wesley So said after the game, "I knew not all three players right behind me would win. That was highly unlikely. But even if just one of them won, that would mean a tiebreak if I drew. My goal for this game was to play objectively good chess, play solidly and seize my chances when they came. It's a relief that I won my game to avoid a tiebreak. Nepomniachtchi is a great fighter. He forced me to play instead of aiming for a short draw. It's huge for me to win this tournament with the world champion in the field. If you keep working and have a clear vision of your goals, then results will come. And let's all take that piece of advice from this top grandmaster." The results of round 13, even after more than 2 weeks of high-level chess, the players did not take it easy. As you can see, there were 5 decisive games and only 2 draws. Aronian, who was one of the pursuers, lost. Wei Yi, who was one of the pursuers, lost. We saw Nepomniachtchi against So. The rematch of the World Championship between Carlsen and Karjakin ended in a draw. Geary played his 11th draw in 13 games. Rapport lost to Adiban and Van Wely scored his first win. He finished in bottom place, but ending the tournament with a win always tastes very sweet. The final standings after round 13, Wesley So's the winner. Magnus Carlsen on his own in second place, and third place is shared by Wei Yi, Adiban and Aronian. Congratulations to Wesley So on his tournament victory, and it will be interesting to follow him during the year 2017. He's playing in many events, and let's see if he can keep up this amazing record of winning tournament after tournament. Hope you enjoyed the coverage of the Tata Steel 2017 tournament. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe, please spread the word, and I will go back now to my schedule of 2 videos a week. I will post a new video every Wednesday and Saturday. Thank you for all your comments over the last 2 weeks, over the last 13 videos. This is Rick from Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.